and making sure you can deal with images appropriately. So this is, again, sort of a get your toes wet kind of thing, so you can know where to look and what to look for to make your images better. So I'll give a little breathing second before I move on and see if anyone has any questions too.
We don't have any questions right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so here it is. Here's the, this was actually a picture taken from a lady's blog, and the link is down below, where she made a quilt of this panda bear. So she purposely pixelized the panda bear. I didn't realize there was that much alliteration in that sentence before I said it. But she did that. So she actually made a quilt out of it. So this was purposeful pixelation of a panda bear. So now we'll go to the video. I have he does a series of quick 2-minute explanations of pieces of graphic design. If you are interested in continuing to improve your social media, your posts, your designs, you might want to check out his YouTube channel. He's pretty fun. A quick video, and I'm going to open up the chat box if there's any issue with the video showing, but I think it should be.
We're just having some sound issues, Miranda, if you can hear me.
Oh, okay. Is it too quiet or broken up?
It's broken up.
Okay, let's see. Maybe you need to talk louder. Is that any better right now?
For now, yeah. I don't know why. It was just getting really broken up and spotty.
You know what? Luckily I'm on a laptop, so I'm just going to walk closer to my router.
Oh.
And that might be it. So just one moment.
Okay.
Okay. So let me know if this doesn't fix it.
Okay.
Okay. So here we'll go and start this video.
Hey, Miranda.
Yes.
It's still really it's choppy and stuff.
Okay.
I'm wondering if I should maybe try playing it and share my screen.
Yeah, we could try that. And then if it doesn't work, I do have a link to this in my resource page, so it could be viewed after.
So it's called Image and Resolution Explained. Let me try to open that real quick here.
And yeah, and it's 2-minute design. And I could text you the link through the. If I
Okay, so I have it on mine. Let me see if I can share my screen. So there's no sound for the video. Huh.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I do have the link in there, and I can do a quick explanation of what he was going to go over.
Okay. I don't know why that didn't work. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. That was one thing we didn't test was the video.
Okay, let me stop my sharing. Now I think you can go ahead and take back over.
Sorry about that. So please also interrupt me too if my voice doesn't get better. Um, but I don't keep talking.
Yes,
You don't
it's
hear
still
me.
a little choppy, but I'm not sure why.
Okay.
It was really good before we like went into like the video and stuff, so I'm baffled.
Hmm. Okay. Well, let's see if this helps. Okay. Cool. Basically, what the video is explaining is that you have pixels, which are squares, on the screen or something that's printed. And if you have something that's 10 by 10, and you just drag it bigger, it's not going to make it's not going to make more squares. It's just going to make the squares bigger. So that's where you get the pixelation from, is you just are dragging those squares to be bigger. So what you need to do is use a photo editing program where you can actually go in and edit the photo so you can add more pixels so it smoothly gets bigger. Not all pictures can be made really big, but if they were made at a certain size, then they can be done and dragged to be bigger by doing a quick little piece where you change the resolution on a specific box that's inside Photoshop. And I do have links in the resource page where there are some free online classes that will walk you through the whole process, and also some paid classes that aren't that expensive through Coursera and through lynda.com. So those are on the resource page that you will get at the end. The other takeaway from the video is resolutions. When you do figure out how to change resolutions on different pictures, you want to make sure that anything you're presenting on a screen, anything you're posting on social media is at least 72 dpi. DPI stands for dots per inch, and it's really easy to do that. It's really most images are way bigger than that anyways, but that's a minimum. And then for printing, it needs to be much higher because you're actually printing out those pixels. A piece of paper being printed is higher resolution than what your screen is going to be. And that needs to be at least 300. So those are sort of just two numbers to keep in mind when you do get into Photoshop or some other photo editing program where you can finish it. So the next piece with images is different file formats. Vector images are images that can be dragged and made really big without that pixelization. They're usually files that are made in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, or another illustration program. Usually, people will use them for logos and things that need to resize a lot. So those are called vector images. So if you are looking to make a logo for your library or something like that, you want to make sure that you might be using those Adobe Illustrator programs so that it can be resized. So next is about images. I know libraries have smaller budgets. You don't have a lot of money to go either pay a photographer or buy images that you can find, but there are lots of free ones that you can use. So here we go. Google, of course. I do lots of presentations and use Google a lot. They do have an advanced image search, and you can search for whatever you need. I just chose library meme in here. You go all the way to the bottom, you can do filter by usage rights. So if you go right here, free to use or share or modify, that means someone has checked a little box on this image and that it is free for you to use or even change and use. And depending on some are even labeled where you don't even have to attribute where it came from, but I always like to give someone credit, whoever made the image. So here, yes, go ahead.
Miranda, we have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible to create vector images from non-vector files?
Yes, but it's essentially would be redrawing the image. So yes, but you would still be doing all the same work of redrawing it. Um, I'm trying to think if is it a logo that someone already has that they need to then made?
I'm not sure what type of original file. Maybe they can tell us.
Okay, yeah. If you wanted to let us know that, but yeah, essentially you'd be taking whatever the image is, and you would have to almost like tracing paper. You would redraw in Adobe Illustrator or another illustration program, and then you would have that vector image. Because vector images are a lot bigger and more complicated, because you can, yeah, okay, so your logo is in JPEG format. So yeah, it would have to be redrawn, essentially. You would have to probably find someone that could use Illustrator and redo it. And that's one reason why I did not go into graphic design. It was because Adobe Illustrator is hard to use. Once you're experienced in it, it's easy, but being a newbie at it, it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, there's not an easy answer for making that logo into a vector format. You might be able to play with the resolution of it, depending on whoever made your logo. You know, if they have the source files of where they made it, you might be able to do something. So it's kind of like you'd have to do a little hunting down. Who made the logo? Do they have the original file format? Because it's very likely that they originally created it in Illustrator, and then they could work from that Adobe Illustrator file to make it bigger for you. So you might have to do a little hunting around for that. Yeah. So let's see, a free program. So I have the chat box open now. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So someone
Thanks,
is there.
David.
Yeah, a little more information on that. Perfect. Yeah, agreed. And that's why I love chatting in the middle of the presentation, because I always learn things that I don't know. So thank you. Um, again, interrupt me if you have any other things to chat about or questions. But here are some examples of what you could find. You could use any of these pictures in a social media post. Sometimes people do like to put library memes on their social media posts, and we'll see some of those later on. But this gives you a place to find some things. You know, you might not have all the time in the world to make your own funny library meme, but you could go and take one and find one that is labeled for reuse with modification. So that's one place. I do have two other resources to find free images besides Google. They're on the resource document that I'll show at the end and share at the end. But I wanted to make sure we had enough time to sort of go over everything. So I'm not going to go into those right now. So those are those images. So what we'll do next is we're going to talk a little bit about text in graphic design and using text. Kids.
Hey, Miranda. Sorry, it's breaking up again.
Your voice is a little broken up too. It's very odd.
Yeah, I don't understand why it does that. I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. And we tested it too on Friday, and it sounded just perfect.
Yeah, of course. Everybody's trying to do stuff.
Maybe what I'll try to do is talk slowly, and then at least the breaking up part won't be so hard to understand.
Sure.
Let's see. Is it completely unhearable?
Right now, it's fine. It might be when you're going between programs that it kind of breaks up a little bit.
Okay, so I'll wait to talk. Okay, thank you. That's good. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just keep it out of my present mode too. So keeping it simple, stupid. is just sort of a mantra to have when you're dealing with text in any sort of graphic design. You want to keep it simple. You don't want people to have to work for the information that you want to give them. And it kind of goes by Steve Jobs. It's one of his mantras is just keeping things simple and not overthinking things. And it also goes true with graphic design as a whole and not just the text. So the next piece with text is avoiding centering everything. It's a really easy way to make things sort of look pleasing to the mind. The human mind likes symmetry. They like things in the middle, but don't do it all the time. It sort of ends up being a default for people who are designing something. Just put everything in the middle. Just keep it in the back of your head. Maybe I'll try not to put this in the middle. Maybe I'll try to find another place to put the text. So that's why I chose this graphic that says yes and no, because it's not a rule that you can't put things in the middle. It's just a rule that, a suggestion that maybe you can think of an alternative. So the final thing with text is font. And I'll stop talking for a minute while I open up the website so it doesn't hopefully chop up. Okay. So fonts are a huge thing. I do have friends who are graphic designers and they're font nerds. There was actually a whole documentary made about Helvetica, the font, like a whole full length documentary. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go into and really getting into fonts. But I'm going to give you a quick overview here of different fonts and what they should be used for. And again, the link to this infographic is also in the resource document, so you can look at it more closely at another time, but we'll just scroll through it quickly. So first you have our different types of fonts, the four main ones. Serif, you can see the little tiny feet at the bottom. Those are serifs. So basically any font that has like a little foot on the bottom is called a serif font. Sans serif is French for, I think French, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but French for without serifs. So you can see it has a very cut off end right there. You have script fonts, which are like handwriting fonts, and then decorative fonts, the ones that are just sort of the weird wingding ones that are out there. So there are different uses for each of those four, and that's what I'm going to go over right now. Serif fonts should really be used for print. They're best used in print, in newspapers, and they're more traditional and more sort of more business-like. There's some examples in blue on the bottom there of popular serif fonts. The two biggest ones are Garamond and Times New Roman, which usually are defaults on any computer. But there are other ones too that can be used. So that's what a serif font should be used for. If you are creating something for social media, you really shouldn't be using serif fonts. Of course, there's no font police that's going to get you, but that is the accepted rule and how serif fonts are used. And then you have sans serif fonts, and the most popular ones for those are Helvetica and Arial. And those are really for digital platforms. So you'll find yourself using those primarily, most of the time because our lives are digital and online. They are considered more useful, more accessible, more playful. But the fact that they don't have that makes them show lines.
Miranda,
So,
you're breaking
yes.
again. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. No, thank you for letting me know.
No worries.
I'm sitting like right next to the router.
Oh.
Let me see. Let's see. Unfortunately, my netbook doesn't have a connection where I can connect it to it.
Oh, like a hard wire.
Yeah. Let's see. I was thinking if there's anything else I could close on here. No. Okay. Again, I'll just slow my voice
It
down.
sounds fine now.
Okay. Sometimes I start talking really fast. Maybe that doesn't help.
Oh, maybe.
Okay. So we'll go to the script fonts. And those really should be more for invitations, should really not be used in any body copy, long paragraphs, headlines, invitations, things like that. If you're doing some sort of event at the library where people are doing things where they need to, feel like it's a little more fancy. And then decorative fonts really should be used very minimally. There's a whole group of people who really hate Comic Sans, and it's like there's a pure hatred for it because people think it's sort of fun and they overuse it. So decorative font should be really used in very few places to make anything. So sort of keep those in the way back pocket. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking for a minute so I can go between, and hopefully that won't break up the sound. Okay. So all of the things that I was talking about before are really suggestions and not rules. They are things that you should keep in mind, but you don't have to follow strictly. Excuse me. Just like this quote from Pablo Picasso, if you know the rules, you can break the rules. So that's why we'll share them here today, so you can break them and feel like it's necessary. So the next tip is really, if you can't remember anything that I've said before, is that less is more when you're designing anything, from everything we've talked about: text, from colors, fonts, putting things down on the screen or on paper. Less is more. So that's the last slide that I have for design. The next piece we're going to talk about is social media. And how's my voice doing now? Is it still slightly understandable?
Yeah, I mean it's been better the last few
Okay,
minutes, so yeah.
good. Yes, perfect. So next, yeah, we'll talk about social media. And before you do post anything on social media, um, you need to realize what should be said on the social media. And I found this graphic. It was perfect because it's like a Venn diagram of what you want to say and what your patrons are interested in you saying. Where that overlaps, that's what you should be posting online. You might want to say a lot of things, but maybe the patrons don't care. So you just sort of think that in mind. Think of your audience when you're posting. And that's also the next slide, is talking about who you should think about. When posting online, everyone is your audience. You are going to be posting to patrons, to people who are paying taxes, to people who aren't paying taxes, to people who might be on your board. Every background, every religion, every political viewpoint, they're all looking at your social media website or platform. So you kind of need to ask the questions. What would these people think? I do that whenever I post online. What would my mom think if I posted this? What would my potential employer think if I posted this? What would my friends think if I posted this? You have to ask those questions in the back of your mind before you push that post button, and make sure that it's appropriate for all those people. And this kind of goes without saying, but sometimes it's so easy to post things online that we might not think, oh, you know what? There's a subset of our patrons who might be offended by this. So maybe I'll tweak something, reconsider something. You just have that in your mind before you push the post button. And I'm going to go back to image attribution a little bit. We talked about that when we did the Google search. It's really easy to repost things and reshare, retweet things online. You just want to make sure that you give the attribution where it's due. I'm sure most of you know about Creative Commons. These are some of the icons that Creative Commons uses. CC stands for Creative Commons. And then the equal sign you'll see next to pictures that can be shared means that you can share it, but you can't change it in any way. You can't re-edit it and then post it. And then the little icon with the person inside means that you should tell who made this originally. So when you're searching online in the Creative Commons, those are some icons, that you should keep in mind. So we'll dive right into it. Each platform has a very specific audience or type of thing that people are expecting on that platform. So we'll start with Twitter. So Twitter really should be used for news and announcements, links to a library blog that you have, or maybe once in a while, like an amusing GIF, one of those little animations, to keep people entertained. But primarily, Twitter is for news, and this is what users expect when they're on Twitter. You go to a certain platform to expect certain things, and I have 5 different platforms we're going to go over, and they all are slightly different. So what I'll do right now is take a peek at the Twitter of Multnomah County, and this is in Portland, Oregon, where this library is. You can see they have quite a lot of followers. They have about 11,000, which is pretty good. If we scroll down,
Miranda,
yes.
it's breaking up again. I don't know, maybe if it was the scrolling or something, but that's just when it kind of started.
Okay, so I won't talk while I'm scrolling then. So here we go. They retweeted something about an event, which is considered news and announcements, and they have that on there. And in Twitter too, people like to see photos. So if you can attach a photo to something that you post there too, that's not necessary, but once in a while, a good idea. Once we get to Instagram, which is the next one, that's where photos really shine. But sticking a photo in Twitter once in a while is a good idea. So I'm going to go right into Instagram next. Give the internet a second to catch up. Okay. So Instagram is for really engaging photos. What people expect on Instagram is behind the scenes things. Like, if you have a weekend back from break where the return bin is like overflowing and everywhere, it might be fun to post a picture of that just to sort of show like, look how much people are reading. Isn't this great? Even just your librarians working in the back where no one gets to see, that sort of behind the scenes stuff really engages people and makes them want to come back to your platform. You might want to highlight a couple books, a book display that you're really proud of. Taking a photo of that and getting it on Instagram would be a great place for that. Instagram also has a feature called Stories, where you can take a group of photos or a group of short little videos and they get highlighted in the application, and they only stay there, I think, for 24 hours and then they disappear. So a quick temporary sharing session that will be there. And a lot of people use that to share fun things, but things that don't need to be archived. The other thing that Instagram is good for is quote images. A quote image is where someone takes a inspirational or interesting quote and puts it on a pretty background and then posts that as a picture. So you might want to take some quote about reading or something like that and put it on your Instagram page. I have an example for Henrietta Public Library. Okay. And so hopefully my voice isn't breaking up now that I moved there. So what they have here is, if you see in the top right hand corner, is one of their librarians playing with a new dollhouse that they got for their children's room. And the caption was something like, we bought a new dollhouse for so and so. I mean, the children's room. So it's kind of a little joke that, she really wanted to play with it, but it was for the children's room. Um, Henrietta is a suburb of Rochester, and they also have a big thing with T Rexes. You can see in the bottom right hand corner, there's a little tiny piece of a T Rex. Many of their Instagram posts have this T Rex doing weird things. You can see in this one, he's playing chess. I'll scroll down a little bit more and see if we can see a couple more.
I wanted to interject. The A couple of the librarians are actually coming to our annual meeting in May, and they're going to talk about library, uh, like their T Rex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mascots. So that'll
Oh,
be
so the
fun.
Henrietta people are coming?
Yeah, so they'll be here doing their presentation on the T Rex mascot.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I don't know I actually don't know the history behind it. I just follow them, and I saw it and I knew it was good, so I'd be very interested to hear about how they started it. But it's funny. It's sort of like their funny Instagram brand is this T-Rex. And they do some reading programs. They do read alouds outside at this park, and they have someone dressed up as a T-Rex. Like they're really into it. So they're taking it all the way. It's not just a media thing, it's something that they do in real life. They have a T-Rex outfit. So you guys can find something that's sort of funny and fits your personality of your library and sort of go with it. And it makes people really love your library. Um the one with the hills are alive, and it's funny. Um and So this is a good example of a library's personality coming through in their social media. So that's why I wanted to show this one. And I'm glad to hear that they're going to be sharing with you guys later. That will be fun. Okay, give that a second to catch up. So, social media for Facebook. So social media should be used again for news and announcements. That's what people are expecting when they go to Facebook. They also might want a little couple sentence summary of a blog post that you have posted on your library blog and a direct link to it. Curated content. So curated content is stuff that you found on other libraries, social media, or other places that you think is worth sharing. That should be kept to a minimum. You don't want to just be regurgitating stuff that other people have done all the time. It's good to do, but not only do that. Make it a mix of other content that you're posting. Facebook has a feature where you can make an event, and you can sort of do an RSVP thing with it. That can be a powerful tool if you need guest counts, to guess or estimate how many people might be coming to event, if you're providing food or something like that. So using that events tool can be really helpful. Um, Facebook is a really good place for videos. There is a specific way to upload things through Facebook that makes them autoplay. And again, the article on how to do that is in my resource document. That way, as you're scrolling through your Facebook feed, things autoplay. Sometimes it's kind of nice to engage people without them having to do that extra click. So if you are creating video content, that's something to consider, is to use Facebook's video tool to do that. So I'm going to go to the example for Seattle Public Library, and we'll take a peek at what they have. So here's an example of a event. Here piano works, and it looks like it's a meeting of Ladies Musical Club of Seattle. So they have the event there posted with a time and everything, and people can RSVP directly to this event. So that is them using the event feature. And this was on the news actually nationally, where they did this huge book domino thing in the Seattle library. So here's them using video on Facebook to sort of show some fun thing that they did. I can't remember. It's quite interesting. I watched it. I can't remember how many books it was, but it was ridiculous. I'm sure it was a pain to clean up, but very cool video to share. So that's basically some things that you can do with Facebook. So next is Pinterest. Pinterest isn't really one that people think of right away when they're thinking of where they should have social media pieces, but it can be really helpful, especially when you think of infographics. So Pinterest is a place where it's a sort of visual thing. It's kind of like Instagram and how visual it is, but usually with Pinterest, it's more like how-to things. And infographics really fit into there. So if you have found or created really good sort of maybe information literacy infographics, or how to check out a book infographics, or even an infographic that goes over the data of how much your library is utilized, it's a great place to post those on Pinterest. You can also make a collection of digital resources that might highlight local things or special things about your library. Um, and what we can also do is more how-to guides using photos, sort of going a step beyond infographic, but using photos to show how something is done. The example I have is the San Francisco Public Library, and I really like what they've collected on there. So we'll take a quick look at that right now. So at the school I work at, I just did a reading of Magic Tree House, where they're in San Francisco in 1906 when the earthquakes happened and the fires happened. And I found a lot of cool resources at the Library of Congress that showed what it was like in 1906 before the earthquake. So San Francisco has sort of done a similar thing where they have made, in the top left hand corner, you can see a whole selection of what it was like fashion wise to live in San Francisco. So it shows that local history, that's really important to the city, because it was a huge event that burned, the whole city down. So they have that local history there, but also something that's of national interest too, because people might, like myself, might go there to find some resources to show my kids on what it might be like to have lived back then when the earthquake happened. So other things that they have, are lists of things. So you can see here they have a list of Cinderella stories, a list of children's books. It's sort of another way to highlight collections. You can take a bunch of photos that are already online. It could be a direct link to your catalog or a direct link to Goodreads or something like that. But you can highlight a collection you think fit a certain topic. Instead of taking all the books and making a physical display, this is more like a virtual display where people can see, if they have an interest in Cinderella stories, there are 11 books here that they highlight. So it's a way to make collection displays, but without unshowing everything and then having to put it back when the display is over. So it's sort of an alternative to that idea. So next we're going to do blogs. So I'll re-navigate and then dive into that. So blogs have been around for a while. They're a little older than some of the social media that has been popping up. So blogs they're usually pretty self-explanatory, but they're written by your staff. They highlight interesting things that are local. They might explore local places, people, events, different things like that. And it's good to have a schedule of when you might post different blog posts. Maybe have a rotating list of staff members who write something, and just so you can have that information out there that people can see and highlight pieces of the collection that might not get used otherwise. So this is the Portland Public Library, and this is actually Portland, Maine. And they have a really good collection of blog posts. So I'm going to scroll through and find one and chat about that. Okay, so here they have a current collection and just about everything. So in this particular post, they have a little variety of everything, and it's posted by one of their staff members. And in the previous page, there was also a list of staff picks. I know sometimes libraries will have a physical display of staff picks, but you can also highlight it in the blog here and have a little write-up of what each librarian thinks about each book. So it's a great place to sort of have your librarians have a voice out in the public, so people can sort of get to know them as the people that they are and their own reading interests. So I have just a couple more slides left on social media, and then we'll go into questions if there are any questions left. But what I wanted to do is wrap up social media by sort of talking about a strategy. So we talked about different ways to post on each social media platform. But this right here was created by a marketing company, and I have the link in the presentation of who made it. But this is their schedule on when they should be posting to these platforms. Of course, I think libraries would be a little less intense than a business. They have 1 to 5 tweets a day. You don't have to do that. But this is just an example of a program that you could make for your own library of goals. Hey, we should have a Facebook post a day, a tweet every other day, Instagram story every day. You can figure out what's best for you and play around with that. There are some tools out there, and this is actually something I did not put in the resource document, but I can add. There are softwares out there where you can actually schedule these things. So you could pre-write all of your posts for all of the platforms, and then on this program, it will schedule when they're posted. You just put a day and a time in, and it will post for you. If you really get into social media at your library, that might be a tool that sort of alleviates some of the constant logging on and posting, where you can just have a tool that does it for you. So I will add that before I share that with everybody. So this is just an example. Again, I said it's a little intense, but it's something to give you an idea about what you could be doing on your different social media posts. So before I go, I promised a few quick words on print. Like I said, this is mostly focusing on social media and online stuff, but I don't want to forget print, because print is not dead, as much as they say that. It is not. So when you are printing, again, remember the resolution of pictures. Resolution really shows up. Bad resolution really shows up in print. It's very, very evident. You can sort of hide it on a screen, but once you print it out, you can see it. And then fonts. If you select a typical font, it's going to be easy to print out. But if you select a font that's a little weird, It might not be on every computer. When you print it out, if the computer you print from doesn't have that font, it will replace it with another font. So that's just something to be aware of, that you want to make sure that wherever you're printing to has the particular font that you've selected. So don't go crazy with your font selections. And then canva.com is a really good place for people to make really good design. It is a paid service. There's a free version of it that is usable and helpful. But you can expand to have a paid version where you have access to more images and more templates and things like that. But if you haven't looked at canva.com, I would suggest it because it's a good place to start. And it can be used for printing and social media. So you kind of get both in one. I know the RRLC, our library council here in Rochester, has done a couple classes on Canva, and it's made my life easier with the certain things that I do, some posters that I make. So that's something that's worth checking out. So that's all. There's 2 points about print. Print is pretty easy, but I wanted to mention those 2 things. So then that's all the content that I had, but I'd love to open it up for any questions. And I even have some questions here for you guys. If you guys had anything I missed, anything you wanted to hear more about, I'd be happy to chat. I'm pulling up the chat box now so I can see what you guys are saying. Okay. Oh, another suggestion. Oh, good. Luna Pick. I'll have to check that. I've never heard of that before, so I'll have to check that out too.
Yeah, I used it primarily to fix up images for our New York Heritage site because we needed logos of members and things. So I would sort of enhance and make them more usable with it. Yeah, so it's kind of like a real open source looky kind of thing, but it's got a lot of features.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, and that's exactly what the problem we were talking about before is, we have a logo that's, a scanned thing or a tiny little document. It's good to have tools to fix that.
Yeah.
I haven't used GIMP either. I heard you should get a message out 7 different ways. Oh, I actually haven't heard that, but my guess is that, if you have something to say, someone has sort of made the calculation that the magic number 7 is you should get it out 7 different ways. And my assumption is that, 1 way would be Facebook, 2 would be Twitter. 7 to me seems excessive. My guess is that 7 is more of a business thing, like your sell. So I would pick a little bit smaller number, but I think that's what the theory is that you want to spread your word out through the different platforms. So you pick what's important to you. I highlighted, I think, 5 different platforms here. So that's a good place to start. I didn't go over Snapchat. I didn't go over YouTube. So those are other options, but that would be like 7 different channels of getting your message out. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
Anybody else have any questions or things that they have specific to their library that they want to do? Ooh, someone has a big one.
Oh, good. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yes. So if you take anything that you make and make it into a PDF before you print it, it's going to print exactly that way no matter where you print from. So that is a really good thing to do. Now, I think with PDFs, it stands for portable document format. So if you just remember that and you remember that it's going to be completely portable and not break no matter where it goes, that's a good thing. So thank you very much for mentioning that, because that is a very good point. Someone else said, not share same content across all of your channels. Yes. So the person who mentioned about sharing a message 7 different ways, yes, but exactly, don't share the same thing across all platforms. That drives me nuts when people do that. Like, I go on Instagram and there's a picture that's exactly the same on Facebook, that's exactly the same on Twitter. I'm like, I don't want to see it 3 times. And that's why I kind of gave you those bullet points of like, this is kind of what should be on Twitter. This is kind of what should be on Facebook, is so you can differentiate that. So thank you for making that point of not just do copy paste into Twitter, copy paste into Facebook. You want to differentiate it somehow, or pick which platform that piece goes with best. And again, just with graphic design, there's no rules. It's just keeping that in mind. Yeah, thank you. See, this is why I love questions. Questions are the best.
Any more questions that people are ruminating on or thought of? If not, we're always accessible. If you think of something later, you can email me or Miranda directly. And yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. And I'm sorry for the audio issues, but I'll share the presentation and the resource document. So anything you missed, you can go and do a little of your own exploring there.
Yes, and we recorded this whole thing, so I will put this on our YouTube channel so that if you wanted to go and review anything, you can. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you, Miranda. Oh, wait, we have one more question. We have a small library. We currently have a website and a Facebook page. If we don't want to do all the platforms, are there a couple that we should really add?
Good question. So my initial thought is that's a good start. The two that I would add, if you're willing to add to, would be Instagram and Twitter. Instagram, like I said, it kind of makes people feel a part of your library. It's behind the scenes stuff. It's like, our personalities, our photos. It kind of makes people feel more connected. Twitter is really good because it gives a pulse. A lot of people put like emergency notifications on there too. I didn't put a bullet point for that, but like, oh, we're closed because of a library thing. Because of a snowstorm. We're closed because of a snowstorm. And I always go to Twitter to check, is something closed? Is something going on? So those are two that you might consider adding. Instagram could be interchangeable maybe with a blog. If you don't have a blog, and you only wanted to add one or two things, either Instagram or a blog, those kind of both give people a feeling of ownership with the library. So those would be my suggestions, because I agree, all the platforms are overwhelming, especially for a small library. You're busy doing reference things and everything. That's why I love being a librarian, because you can do a little bit of everything, but it gets kind of overwhelming too. So yeah, those would be my suggestions. So hopefully you could dive into those. So good question. Yeah. And I don't mind staying on for a few minutes too, if people just have quietly thinking questions, and they can add them.
Yeah, I think that this was very informative, especially for those of us who have no formal training in design or marketing or anything like that.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a preview of it and get a taste.
Yes. And then too, for those of you who are our members and in our region, our annual meeting is in May. And like I said, we'll have 2 librarians from the Henrietta Public Library come to talk about your library mascot.
The T-Rex.
With their T-Rex. He's part of it, I guess. So, so one of them may be showing up and dressed up as the T-Rex.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yes.
I love librarians.
Yeah, because they included him in the bio.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that should be fun. I guess I can mention, if no one else has any more questions, we do have a couple more CE opportunities. At the end of this month, we're doing Google Suite here in our office. And so if you have questions about Google Suite, you're more than welcome to register and attend. And I'll be talking about New York Heritage next month. If you're curious about that, I'll be doing a seminar on it. And then before you know it, it'll be May.
Yay, spring.
Yeah. So here's Hootsuite.
Yeah, so I was just going to add this to the resource page. It is paid. I'll have to do a little more research, see if there's some sort of free option, but Hootsuite is the most well-known social media management software out there.
Oh, Post Planner, Amber says.
Post Planner. Okay, I'll put that one on there.
That's a good idea. I think I'm going to explore some of this stuff too, because we do have a few outlets that it would be nice to merge.
Yeah, it can get overwhelming. What was it called?
Post Planner.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I have everyone's email from the email address, so I'll share this Google document with you that has all the resources, so everyone can have that.
Sure, and I'll also be sending out a survey, so if you guys would fill it out and give us recommendations. We're still exploring the whole webinar idea. This is the second one we've hosted. And I think it's a really good venue, especially for those that are far away. But obviously there are some hiccups that we come into with regard to distance and things.
Yeah, and I welcome really good feedback, because I love not only good feedback, even constructive criticism feedback.
Yes.
They have on making this better, because this is my first webinar that I've done. I've done workshops before, but not a webinar. So any feedback you have, I want to hear it. You won't hurt my feelings.
Yes, and ditto for me.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if anyone else, when we get our email from Miranda and when I send out the survey, if you think of anything, feel free to email the rest of the group that was involved to share our ideas and spread the news. And I guess that's about all that we have.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Well, like I said, I'll share this within the next hour with everybody, so you can take a look and dive in.
Great. Thanks again for everyone who joined us, and please look out for those emails, and I look forward to seeing you guys around.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda.